Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's the first ever Memorial Day edition of Liquid Lunch. We're not in the studio today, but all last week we worked at coming up with the best guests to talk to you about celebrating our nation, celebrating the red, white, and blue. We celebrate our veterans who go out and fight, who've gone out and fought for our freedoms. We celebrate our men and women in the armed forces that are out there protecting that flag right now. We brought you some of the best guests throughout the year, but today, for Memorial Day, we want to bring you real patriots who know where the rubber meets the road. On Liquid Lunch, we usually have a drink, a little antipasto. Today's a pretty serious day, so we're going to bring in some serious people. And joining me, as always, the most serious guy in radio, Frank
I can be
Morano,
quite irreverent.
the former one-time Guinness Book of World Record holder.
That's right.
For the longest talk show ever. Frank,
That's right.
Take over the show as you always do now.
Well, I think that's kind of a left-handed compliment, John. Well, I am thrilled, though, that we are going to talk with somebody who knows more about the economy and what's happening in this economy, particularly with respect to the president's new immigration proposal, which people on the right and on the left can't stop poo-pooing. And that's the CEO of one of the most influential groups in Washington and in the country right now, FreedomWorks. Adam Brandon is here. Adam, thanks so much. Happy Memorial Day.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
So, we've been talking a lot about this immigration bill,
Sure.
Adam, and we're trying to, one, understand what exactly it is, and then address, especially in a newfound era of no bipartisan cooperation,
Right.
in light of what happened
Right.
with infrastructure, what actually is the way forward to getting a deal like this implemented. So, for folks that may not be up on the nuances of what the president's proposing, what are the key bullet points?
So let's just take a step back. What he's doing is he's laying out the guidelines of what this should look like, what an actual bill would end up being in form. So this is not yet in any legislative text. This is just a concept. So when the president, when he was campaigning, remember the first thing he said, we're either a country or we're not, because the border's obviously broken. So I think it's kind of interesting we're talking about that today, because obviously we are a country, right? So
Seems that way.
So the border issue, this is a nuanced mess in many respects. You go back to the 1980s when Reagan granted the amnesty that temporarily fixed a problem, not long run. So what Donald Trump's actually saying is, look, let's fix this once and for all. And what he means by let's have a system for legal immigration of people who want to stay here, and then let's have a functioning guest worker program for people who, for some part-time seasonal labor that they can come in and come out. And then let's have very clear rules that when you break them, you're out of the system.
It's like, I used to be in the roofing business when I was in college. When you have a leak in the roof, the first thing you do is stop the leak.
Correct.
You don't start mopping up the water in all the other floors. Whatever you have to do, stop the water from coming in.
So President Trump has begun as best he can with the funds he has to be building the border. But what you're going to start to see with his proposal is that it's a merit-based system. And it blows my mind that merit-based immigration system can possibly be controversial.
And so what that means for folks that don't know is that essentially if you have a skill that we want more of in this country, you'll be more likely to come into the country through legal immigration.
Through legal.
Yes,
Then
let's ring the bell on
just
that one.
because you happen to
that
be
sounds reasonable.
Hey, look,
merit
you've-
equals good.
You've got 6 million people looking for work in America today. There are 7 million jobs. We have more jobs available than the work. Now, one of the problems is there's probably a jobs mismatch right now. There's a couple million jobs that we just don't have the skill set to fill right now. So what this does is it goes out and we go and get the best and the brightest from India, from Russia, from Nigeria, from all over, and we're bringing in people who want to be here. Part of the system would be a points-based system. This is something that they do in Canada and Australia. So you know what? We need an engineer.
Yeah.
You get 100
okay.
points. You speak English, you get 50 points.
No.
Boom,
Here,
boom, boom.
From my perspective, we talk about this a lot on Liquid Lunch. I'm socially liberal, fiscally conservative. So I call people like that, or even the opposite of that, purple people. You got some reds and some blues, and you kind of meet into the middle. Maybe we should start like a Match.com for employees and employers. If we have a 7 and a 6, maybe we can do.
Yeah, well,
Purple people finder
I
and
like the
match
idea.
up people on jobs before we start looking for other people. But
Yep.
purple people are tolerant. They can understand what other people say, have an intelligent discussion, whether they have the same points of view or not. The left does not want binary things like numbers, like merit that's quantified with a number on a score, what they want to do is, when they can't do education well and get the lower third up, what they do is they start doing all these cockamamie programs to make the higher part dumber, in my view. They try to correct the gap by bringing us down, or those who go for the 100, because they want everybody to be 50 and throw away their individualism. That's how I look at it.
One of the concerns that you'll hear is, well, but by merit, you're going to bring in all these very skilled, talented people.
Oh, no.
And what is that going to do for the poor in America? Well, let me tell you exactly what it'll do in the poor in America. These jobs that are coming in are probably going to be paying about $90,000 a piece. And every one of those jobs creates a whole set of other jobs, either in restaurants, in dry cleaners, in auto body shops. Just there's a lot of other employment that gets generated by these folks. And by shutting the border down, that creates kind of a supply and demand issue, where that means those folks that haven't seen raises in years, well, by bringing in these folks that are going to be bringing in money and job creation, we're going to see pressure upwards on all of those folks and their wages.
So you talk about the issue of bringing in skilled immigrants, legal immigrants. Now,
Legal.
I want to stress that this proposal only addresses legal immigration, has nothing to do with efforts.
So these aren't the ones that get the voting rights. No. If you're illegal and you come in, then you get the voting rights, the free college, the food stamps, and you can commit any crime you want, basically, in a sanctuary city and be released immediately to go back to college and vote. But the legal ones are the ones we're talking
Even Bill de
about.
Blasio has just added a whole new series of crimes that will enable you to be deported if you commit them, if you're an illegal immigrant.
For those of you who are watching across the country, don't think we're just being too New York centric. Bill de Blasio is our mayor. I call him Big Bird. He's one of the worst candidates there is out there. But he just jumped in the race, and de Blasio has made this city a sanctuary city where they literally do not call national enforcement to say, come on down. They let him go.
Right, and again, that's not...
Think about that. If you're
not,
thinking about voting for him as a presidential candidate, he releases illegal immigrants, and legal immigrants would be thrown in the hoosegow.
Well, you know, and again, it wasn't de Blasio. I don't want to have a whole sanctuary city discussion. We can come back to that at the end of the show. But it wasn't de Blasio that made New York a sanctuary city. All the previous mayors had that same policy as well. But I do want to ask what you raised, Adam, about bringing in all these skilled immigrants to compete with Americans for jobs. Sure. That's one of the leading conservative criticisms of this legislation. Mark Krikorian and the Center for Immigration Studies, among others, say, well, this is great. Let's keep bringing in foreigners to compete with Americans for jobs in an era where more and more jobs are being replaced by automation.
Sure. But
what do you say to that?
I look at the unemployment rates where they are right now. I look at these jobs. I mentioned there's a couple million jobs that right now we don't have people with the right and proper skill set. And hey, you could start the education system and make some changes, but it takes years to train an engineer. It takes years. And these jobs are in demand right now.
Tell us a little bit more about the organization. For our audience doesn't know, FreedomWorks is one of the top flight nonprofits.
We do grassroots, and we focus on fiscal issues. We traditionally have not worked on immigration, but we got a good relationship with the White House, and it's a serious proposal. And they're fixing some long-term economic needs. Hey, one other thing that I worry about, just to finish that other question you asked, we've got a real big problem right now with the baby boomers coming in and leaving the job market. In the next 5 to 10 years, there's a lot of people who are working right now who will not be working, and those skills are some of the ones that we need to fix.
Yeah, so, well, we've been talking about the baby bust on this program, and how we're at a 30-year low in terms of births, but for new immigrants coming in, legal and illegal, we would not be able to replace our population.
I joke with Senator Mike Lee all the time, and I'm like, Senator, he's a Mormon from Utah. I'm like, you're the only people who are doing their part on the birth rate stuff.
So being every so often on Liquid Lunch, we might have a little martini to get the real truth serum in some of our guests. Mike Lee would probably not be a candidate.
No, he would take some. I do know this. I have seen him have a virgin margarita before.
Thank God you said margarita. That would have really killed us. I'll tell you that. But go ahead.
No, I was just going to say about, so we talked about the criticism and the concerns that some people on the right have for the Trump proposal. The big proposal, or the big concern that people on the left have with it is that it doesn't do anything about the dreamers. Sure. What do you do all these people that were brought here when they were 3, 4, they had no choice in coming here, their parents brought them here, they've grown up as Americans, and the Trump proposal doesn't do anything to ensure their legal status?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Because I think what Trump's strategy with this is let's fix the big problem, and when you fix the big problem, problem, the dreamer problem, every day becomes a smaller and smaller and smaller problem. So you know what? You come back and deal with that one later somehow. But the first thing is fix the underlying problem first. Like, I am very nervous about people just walking in across the border.
Clog the holes. Stop the water.
So you know what? You fix it. You have the secure border. You have a system. The other thing is every 3 years they're going to recalculate who's coming and what the numbers are. So if we're in the middle of a recession or the economy's slowing down, you lower the number of workers that are coming in. Hey, if the economy's doing well, you can bring that number back up. The other thing that Trump does in this proposal is he breaks this concept of chain migration, where you just have a cousin or a niece that's someplace and you can bring in the rest of your family. This is the worker who's coming in with the job, their spouse, their kids, done.
Thank goodness there's not a tremendous influx from Italy, because we're all cousins. Like cousin Vito. But before we go out, there's all the great works you guys do. I know you try to get down into grassroots communities on certain issues, right down to sheriff, municipal elections, where it's important on critical issues. But what's the biggest problem facing you guys as a nonprofit organization going out there to fight for change? How do you raise money? How is that going? How can we help you?
The hardest thing is I'm going to get real boring for a second, a 501c3, a 501c4, 2 527s. That's free speech in America today. I have to have a whole variety of organizations to say things. And if I'm wearing my foundation hat, I can't say political things. I got to be always switching the hats. We have to, and so that's a lot of cost with accountants and lawyers. I always say someday when I come back, if I get reincarnated, I'm coming back as a lawyer accountant, because the power that those folks have on your ability to run an organization. Well, so I think that's the biggest challenge, is I'm scared about them changing the rules. And when they change these rules, these things are criminal. It's not fun when you think about.
How do you get the cash? You need the cash to fight that.
Well,
that's probably a third of your burn.
Last
goes
year
to legal and administrative and accounting.
Oh, it's actually a lot smaller than that.
Well, that's good. I'm saying that's good.
We're like our
You're
administrative,
efficient. You're conservative.
Yep, our administration stuff is probably like 15% of the total budget. And last year our budget jumped from 8.3 to 11.3. Now it was an election year, so that's good. But I think people are seeing the left invest in grassroots. Now they're seeing us on the right investing in grassroots, so we're getting a lot of support.
We have a lot of companies that come on. We're always talking about investing, but if you care about your country on this Memorial Day in 2019, check out FreedomWorks.